Now, if you were watching us yesterday, you would have seen us discussing whether the Federal Bank in America was going to raise interest rates, and if so, what would that mean for us? Well, Liam Halligan is here to tell us what happened. What happened in America? What's it going to mean for us, Liam?
Well, the US Federal Reserve, the most important central bank in the world, did raise interest rates to roughly 5%. They have a band, unlike us. So they raised interest rates, even though their inflation is only 6%. Our inflation, of course, is 10.4%. It went up unexpectedly earlier this week, that February number. So the Bank of England really is on the horns of a dilemma here, because on the one hand, inflation is going up, so you'd expect them to increase interest rates to bear down on that inflation. On the other hand, there are lots of market jitters. People are worried about banks falling over.
Yeah.
So you'd want to keep interest rates where they are, so you don't roil financial markets even more. So, I mean, I'm never going to be asked to be on the Monetary Policy Committee. That ship has sailed. A bit too independent-minded. Maybe I know a bit too much economics for that job.
Isn't it supposed to be independent-minded, that committee? Isn't that the whole point of it?
Well, the Treasury appoints them all these days, so clearly
You're exactly what they need. You're exactly what they need.
They're going to put them up, aren't they?
I think they will put them up, but I would say to hard-pressed households who are worried about making their mortgage payments, I do think that this will be the last interest rate rise. So I think interest rates will peak at 4.25%. This will be the 11th interest rate rise in a row. They needn't have gone this high. They needn't have been raised this quickly. The reason they have gone so high and they have been raised so fast is because the Bank of England for months and months and months was asleep on the job and kept dismissing fears of inflation raised by renegades like me as nonsense, and they said inflation would be transitory, and it hasn't been transitory.
Yeah, the Governor of the Bank of England, remind me his name, Andrew...
Bailey.
Useless.
Well...
You agree?
The guy's got a degree in history rather than...
Yeah, it's bizarrely.
Economics. Look, he's there. He is the Governor of the Bank of England. I do think he's got some good advisors around him.
Right.
And I'm not saying central banking is easy.
Yeah.
It isn't easy. What I am saying, though, is that the Bank of England and pretty much our entire policy-making establishment wasn't alive enough to the possibility of inflation down the track. And by the way, even before the war in Ukraine, inflation was at a 30-year high. So let's not blame it all on those geopolitical issues.
Let's ask you about the Prime Minister putting out his tax returns yesterday. That was clever. Big day, good day to bury bad news. He's published his tax returns. He earned quite a lot of money, didn't he?
He didn't actually publish his tax returns. He published a kind of 3-page summary of his previous 3 tax returns, compiled by his accountant. Over the last 5 years in the UK, we don't know about his US tax return, of course, because he's not publishing that. In the UK, he made about £5 million. In the last year, he made £1.9 million. You know, he's a successful guy. I don't think British people mind if you're successful as long as you're honest.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, well, if my kid was smart and made that kind of money, I'd be pleased.
Because his money's in a blind trust, so we don't know where he earns the money
for him
from.
or her. I think what is difficult is that, you know, for the vast majority of people, it isn't that he earned 1.9 million quid, it's that he earned less than 200,000 of that from his day job, being the Prime Minister and an MP. So the vast majority of his income was, as we say in the trade, unearned. That doesn't mean he didn't do anything to earn it, but it's from dividends and investments and so on. So he will have a problem with many people, because these are sums of money people just can't get their heads around. They seem grotesque, even if, of course, it's completely legal what he's done. And it seems to be maybe a little bit of bad luck on his part. It seems weird talking about bad luck when he's earning so much money, that he is Prime Minister at a time when there's a cost of living crisis, so his personal wealth comes to the fore, and it will make some people think, when they look at him, can you ever really understand how me and my family live?
And things like, I think we do need transparency, actually, on where Prime Ministers make their money, because there were question marks over whether he had shares in Moderna or whether one of the companies that he invested in was one of the funders of Moderna. We need to know that kind of stuff, because did that influence decisions? 3rd year of lockdowns today, obviously anniversary. In your opinion, Liam, how badly did that affect our economy?
Well, I'm proud that of my work, not just here on GBNews, but on the Telegraph's Planet Normal podcast, which I co-present with Alison Pearson. We've got an interview today, part 1 of our 2-part lockdown special with Anders Tegnell, who masterminded the lockdown policy, or the lack of lockdown policy in Sweden. I think lockdown was probably the worst policy error in post-war British history. I think it did enormous economic, psychological and medical damage to people. We've got 150,000 kids who haven't gone back to school. We've got massive mental health crises. We've got massive NHS waiting lists. I think when you look at the excess deaths table, Britain has done OK, but Sweden, who had voluntary lockdown, of course, did far, far better. They never closed schools, which I think was vital. And I think the public inquiry into lockdown has been far too long getting going. There's no deadline for when it finishes.
80 million
in contrast, Sweden, France, Italy, they've all finished their public inquiries. We desperately need the establishment not to kick this into the long grass. We need to be asking tough questions about why we made the decisions that we made.
Yeah.
And I must say, I don't think the public inquiry will be the same now that the Telegraph and Isabel Oakeshott have released all those WhatsApp messages. I think it will be much less of a whitewash than it otherwise would have been.
Don't forget, the Bloody Sunday inquiry took 40 years.
Yeah.
So we've got a long way to go.
Absolutely. Right, thank you, Liam.